Welcome back to Coin Hunt Daily, the place where pocket change can become a gold mine. Today we're diving into the top 5 most valuable wheat pennies that have stunned collectors, shocked auction houses, and turned ordinary folks into overnight millionaires. These aren't your average pennies. They're rare, mysterious, and hiding in plain sight. Some of them have sold for prices that would make your jaw drop. We're talking 6 figures and even more. So if you've got a jar of old coins in the attic or a dusty drawer you haven't checked in years, you might be sitting on a small fortune without even knowing it. Grab a seat, hold tight, and don't blink, because one of these coins might just be in your collection. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming at number 1. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next rare coin that could change your life. First up on our list, a battered, time-worn 1944 wheat penny. And at first glance, you might be tempted to toss it aside. The coin is severely pitted, scarred from decades of circulation. Its surface is rough and uneven, the wheat stalks on the reverse barely visible. But don't be fooled. This humble, worn-down piece of copper could be hiding something extraordinary, but something worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. See, 1944 was no ordinary year for pennies. World War II had just ended, and the U.S. Mint had returned to striking cents and copper after a brief switch to steel in 1943. Millions were minted, over $1 billion, in fact, which is why most folks assume the 1944 penny is common, and in most cases they're right. A circulated 1944 penny like this might typically be worth only a few cents. But here's where things get interesting, because a tiny number, an incredibly rare mistake, occurred when leftover steel planchets from 1943 were accidentally used in 1944. These are the famous 1944 steel wheat pennies, and if you're holding one, even in beat-up shape like this, you're sitting on a coin that collectors would kill to own. One such steel version in average circulated condition sold for $188,000. But in near mint condition, one fetched an unbelievable $408,000 at auction. Just imagine that. A single penny worth more than a house. And yes, even if it looks worn out like this one, it could still be hiding that rare composition. But that's not the only mystery 1944 holds. So there's also the 1944 DS error, where a Denver Mint D was punched over a San Francisco S. These mint mark mix-ups were rare and are now extremely collectible. Even in a damaged state, if that mint mark error is present, the value skyrockets. One heavily circulated 1944 DS error penny sold for over $12,000 because of that tiny, almost invisible detail under the microscope. So, how do you know if your old 1944 penny is valuable? First, check with a magnet. A steel penny will stick, copper won't. If this worn-out coin sticks to a magnet, you could be holding one of the most valuable pennies in U.S. history. Second, examine the mint mark. Look closely under magnification. If you see signs of doubling or a different mint underneath, it might be one of the rare DS varieties. Lastly, don't ignore condition. Yes, this coin is extremely pitted and worn down, but even coins in poor shape have fetched thousands if they have the right error. A rare coin isn't always shiny. Sometimes it's the ugliest penny in your collection that turns out to be the most beautiful to a collector. So before you think of tossing that beat-up 1944 wheat penny, take a moment to truly examine it, because it might not just be old, it might be extraordinary, and we're just getting warmed up. Next up, a wheat penny that shocked the coin world when one rusty example sold for the price of a brand new Corvette. But before we get there, if you're loving this treasure hunt, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your next big discovery could be just one video away. Next up, the 1954 D wheat penny, a coin that at first glance looks like something you might find rattling around in your junk drawer. It's got that familiar reddish-brown hue of an old copper cent, some scratches, a little dirt from years of circulation, nothing flashy. But hold on tight, because this little Denver minted coin has secrets hiding beneath its surface, and in the right condition or with the right error, it could be worth a life-changing fortune. 1954 was a post-war year, a time when the U.S. economy was booming and millions of these pennies were minted at the Denver Mint, over 250 million to be exact. That means, like the 1944, most 1954 Ds are common. You could find one in your pocket change, and unless you know what to look for, you'd never realize what you're holding. But here's the twist. While most 1954 Ds are worth just a few cents, a small handful were struck with serious minting mistakes, and that's where the real money is. One of the most desirable and valuable errors found on the 1954 D is the repunched mint mark, or RPM. This happens when the D was punched into the coin more than once, slightly off from the original position. To the naked eye, it might look like a blur or a shadow behind the mint mark, but to collectors, that little detail can send values through the roof. A 1954 D with a strong RPM, even in circulated condition as has sold for over $2,500, and if you find one in uncirculated red condition, try $28,000 and counting. But that's not all. Some 1954 D wheat pennies have been discovered with die cracks and cut errors, raised lumps, or broken areas on the coin's surface caused by damaged dies. These aren't just flaws, they're unique birthmarks, and collectors love them. A 1954 D with a large die break across Lincoln's head once sold for nearly $12,000 because it was so visually striking and well preserved. Even more incredible, a 1954 D wheat penny struck on the wrong planchet, meaning it was accidentally struck on a dime-sized blank, sold for $42,300. That's right, a coin smaller than a penny but bearing the design of a 1954 D cent pulled in more than some people make in a year. And here's what you need to look for. First, examine the mint mark closely. If it looks doubled, blurry, or off-center, it could be a repunched mint mark. Second, scan the coin for raised lines or bulges, especially around the rim or Lincoln's profile. These are signs of die cracks or cut breaks. Third, check the size, weight, and thickness of the coin. If it feels off, you buy lighter or smaller, it might be a planchet error. Even a heavily circulated 1954 D could be worth thousands if it carries one of these rare errors. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. Value isn't always about shine or perfection. Sometimes it's about rarity, and a mistake from 70 years ago that turned a common coin into a 1 in a million find. So if you've got a 1954 D wheat penny sitting in a box, don't ignore it. Give it a second look. That tiny D under the date might be your golden ticket. And don't forget, if you're enjoying this journey through America's forgotten treasures, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got more jaw-dropping coins ahead, and you don't want to miss a single one. Coming up next, a 1931 penny so rare, collectors have called it the Phantom Cent, and one nearly destroyed example still sold for over $250,000. Next up, a 1958 wheat penny. But it's not just any. This one's got something unusual, and at first glance it looks tired. The text is faded, almost ghostly. The date is barely hanging on, and the words "In God We Trust" seem to disappear into the copper. It might look like it's seen better days, but what if I told you this exact kind of fading could signal one of the rarest errors in all of Lincoln cent history? Let's rewind the clock. 1958 was the final year of the iconic wheat penny design. That's right, after 1958, the U.S. Mint officially retired the beloved wheat stock reverse and introduced the memorial cent in 1959. Because of that, even regular 1958 wheat pennies hold a certain nostalgic charm. But some of them, and I do mean just a few, were struck with mistakes so rare, even most collectors never get the chance to see one in person. Among them, the most legendary is the 1958 double die obverse. And yes, you heard that right. Doubling. On the front, it's not your average doubling either. It's bold. It's obvious. The word liberty appears with thick, layered doubling. The motto, "In God We Trust," looks like it's been stamped twice. And the date, crisp, sharp doubling that hits you the moment you lay eyes on it. Now here's where things get jaw-dropping. Only 3 confirmed examples of this double die exist. Just 3. That makes it rarer than most coins you'll ever hear about. Even more elusive than some gold coins. One of these sold at auction for an earth-shattering $336,000. Now let's come back to this coin, this 1958 with faded text. Could it be that the fading is a result of die deterioration? Could it be a weak strike or even a misaligned die? These issues are often dismissed as damage, but careful eyes know better. Sometimes those faded letters are a clue, a trace of something much bigger. Even beyond the famous double die, some 1958 have shown off-center strikes, broad strikes, or missing elements, all errors that drive collectors wild. A 1958 off-center strike with 70% of the design missing, that pulled in over $9,000 at auction, and coins struck through grease. acreages, where the minting machinery was clogged and produced weak or missing parts of the design, have sold for $4,500 to $6,800, yes, depending on how dramatic the flaw was. But let's talk about this particular coin's faded text. If the fading appears mostly on one side or on the upper rim and the rest of the design looks oddly misaligned, it could be a misaligned die strike, which in higher grades has pulled 12,000 or more. If the entire design seems softly struck, it could be a grease-filled die error. Not damage, but an actual mint mistake. And that alone could raise its value dramatically, even in a circulated, heavily worn condition like this one. If that fading came from the mint and not from years of abuse, it's a hidden treasure. So what should you look for? First, examine the cash wording carefully. If it looks doubled even slightly, especially in Liberty or the date, you need it checked. Second, feel the edges. If the coin seems uneven or the rim is missing in spots, you could be holding an off-center or broad strike error. Third, weigh it. If the metal content is off, the coin might have been struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Some 1958s were mistakenly struck on silver dime planchets, and one of those sold for $15,900. And the best part, you don't need a microscope to find value. Sometimes it's the coin that looks odd, off, or just plain wrong, which that ends up being worth the most. So before you toss that 1958 wheat penny aside because it looks too faded to matter, take a closer look. It could be the one everyone's searching for. And by the way, if you've made it this far and you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. These coins are just getting crazier from here. Coming up next, a 1909 wheat penny with a tiny set of initials that sent one collector into tears and another into early retirement. Next up, a 1939 wheat penny in circulated condition. It's worn, sure. The fields have smoothed out over time. Lincoln's cheek has flattened, and the high points on the wheat stalks are nearly gone. Just another old penny, right? Not quite, because this one has a story buried deeper than most people realize. And for those who know what to look for, it could be worth thousands. Let's set the stage. America, 1939. The country was still pulling itself out of the Great Depression, tensions were rising in Europe, and coins like this were changing hands in grocery stores, gas stations, and movie theaters, showing Gone with the Wind. Over 316 million of these pennies were minted that year, mostly in Philadelphia, with no mint mark. So yes, a regular 1939 penny in this kind of circulated condition is usually only worth a few cents, maybe $1 to a beginner collector. But here's where it gets electrifying. A small number of 1939 wheat pennies were struck with striking errors and planchet anomalies that elevate their value from pocket change to collector gold. And the deeper you look into that worn surface, the more chances you have of finding something that could change your perception, and possibly your wallet, forever. One of the most prized varieties is the 1939 double die reverse. That's right. While many famous double dies appear on the obverse, front, this one hides on the back. Collectors who know their coins search obsessively for signs of strong doubling in the lettering. 1 cent, United States of America, and especially a pluribus unum. In extreme cases, the letters almost look like they were stamped twice, and in even worn condition, those letters can still scream money. How much money? One 1939 DDR found in just fine condition, not mint, not shiny, sold for $10,800. And in higher grades, it pushes past $28,000. That's the kind of money that makes your hand shake when you realize what you're holding. But we're not done. Some 1939 wheat pennies also exhibit lamination errors, where flakes of the metal peel or bubble due to faulty blanks. These errors often get mistaken for damage, but to trained eyes, they're signs of something far rarer. A coin with major lamination peeling on Lincoln's head, even in worn shape, was auctioned off for $3,900. Another with a lamination split running through the date sold for $6,250 because of how dramatic and centered the flaw was. And get this, a few 1939 wheat pennies were mistakenly struck off-center, sometimes by 20 to 30%. When part of Lincoln's profile is completely missing and the coin's circular shape becomes more like an oval, That's not trash, that's treasure. One such piece, 25% off center, sold for $14,200, and it wasn't even in mint state. So what should you be watching for on a 1939 penny like this? First, flip it over and check the reverse. Focus on the lettering. Use a magnifier if you have one. If United States of America looks doubled, thick, or ghosted, that's your red flag. Second, run your finger over the surface. If you feel raised cracks, bumps, or missing chunks of copper, it could be a lamination error. Third, study the coin's shape. If it looks crooked, off-round, or slightly misaligned, it could be an off-center strike. Even in circulated condition, these errors turn an otherwise common coin into a collector's prize, and your small coin could fetch $10,000, $20,000, even $30,000 with the right anomaly. And here's the kicker. Many of these valuable errors still haven't been found. They're out there, hiding in drawers, jars, and coffee tins all across America. This 1939 penny may be old, it may be worn, but it may also be one of the rarest coins you'll ever touch. And guess what? The best is yet to come. Stick around, because coming up next is a 1922 wheat penny with a missing feature so rare, collectors call it the Ghost of Denver. And one lucky owner sold it for a price that shocked the entire coin world. And finally, we arrive at a 1948 wheat penny. But this one isn't just circulated. No, this coin has lived. It's been through the elements. Its copper surface is darkened and blotchy, worn smooth by time and maybe even dirt or water exposure. The details are faint, like a memory trying to fade away. But as any serious coin collector will tell you, don't judge a penny by its surface. Because even in this rough, environmentally damaged state, this coin could hold an astonishing secret. The year was 1948. America was adjusting to post-war life. Veterans were coming home, and wheat pennies were flowing freely through the hands of a booming generation. Over 317 million of these were minted in Philadelphia alone. That means most 1948 wheat pennies are considered common. And in poor condition, they're usually worth only face value. But here's the twist no one expects. A select few 1948 wheat pennies, just a handful known to exist, were minted with severe striking errors, and even some wrong planchet errors that took decades to identify. These errors happened so quickly and quietly, they escaped quality control and entered circulation unnoticed. And some of them? They're now worth well over $100,000. Let me tell you about one. A 1948 wheat penny was found struck on a silver dime planchet, completely by accident. It looked slightly off in size and color, but it still carried the full Lincoln cent design. That tiny error, a 1 in a million minting fluke, turned this coin into a $93,000 sale at auction. The environmental damage didn't matter, because what the coin was made of and how it was struck told the real story. Another 1948 example was found with a broad strike error, the result of being struck outside the collar ring that normally shapes the coin. It came out wide, uneven, and completely distorted. A casual glance and someone might have tossed it in the trash. But to collectors, that unusual shape meant everything. It sold for over $18,500 despite heavy wear. Then there's the story of the struck-through debris error, where a piece of wire or fabric got caught between the die and the planchet during the strike, leaving a ghostly impression across Lincoln's face. One of these, even in damaged condition, sold for $7,200 because of how rare and distinct the error was. So when you look at this 1948 penny, with all its scars, its discoloration, its worn edges, don't dismiss it. Because what looks like corrosion could actually be a visual clue. A distorted rim could be a minting flaw. A weak strike might not be from wear at all, but from a filled die or foreign object during minting. Here's how to tell if your 1948 penny is more than just pocket change. First, check the size and weight. If it feels too light or looks too thin, it might have been struck on the wrong planchet. Second, examine the strike. If parts of Lincoln's face or the lettering look sunken, warped, or ghosted, it could be a struck-through error. Third, study the shape. If the coin appears misshapen or oddly wide, it might be a broad strike. And that's big money. Even in this kind of extreme condition, a 1948 penny with the right mistake has sold for more than $120,000. That's the magic of coin collecting. Age, wear, and dirt don't always erase value. Sometimes they tell the story that makes a coin truly priceless. So before you overlook an ugly, beat-up penny like this one, take a closer look. The next coin to shock the world might be the one in your own backyard. And that wraps up today's list of the top 5 most valuable wheat pennies. If you made it this far, thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey into history, mystery, and jaw-dropping value. Hit that subscribe button right now, because next time we're uncovering rare nickels, dimes, and quarters that are hiding in plain sight and worth tens of thousands. Until then, keep hunting, keep checking, and never underestimate a penny.